Welcome to our Nona. My name is Kevin Kendrick, and I am joined today by Mark Pagdin, the owner of TrustHome Properties. And Mark, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
So, Mark, let's start a little bit about you. I know that you live in Lake Nona, but tell us, how long have you been in the Lake Nona community? And tell us a little bit about TrustHome Properties.
Well, I've been here over 20 odd years now. I think 23 years. Came to Nona when it was cow fields and there were 4 shops, Publix, Plumtree, Dry Cleaners and Walgreens, I think, were there when I came. Stayed in Nona all the time I've lived here. Not really thought about moving out, seen the growth. My son grew up here playing golf, so I mean it's just been a fit for me and my circumstances.
So coming to Lake Nona and talking about that, the growth that we've seen over the years, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, because I've been here my entire life, so I've seen Narcoossee go from a dirt road to 2 lanes to now 6.
Yeah.
You've seen it go from 2 lanes to 6, and
Yeah.
now we have multiple businesses.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts growing, having your son grow up in this community as it's grown, and of course you've been here for over 20 years?
I think if you're a lifelong Nona resident like I am, like you are, I think you've had to adjust. Because certainly when I moved here way back, we were sold this dream of big single-family homes and these wonderful residences and what have you, and it's morphed into something different. It's a lot bigger, as you say. There's a lot more buildings, businesses, and what have you. And a lot of stuff has come in with maybe not the infrastructure to support it. So, I think it could have maybe been staged a little better, but on the other hand, it's brought a lot of publicity to the area. A lot of wealth, a lot of excitement, a lot of innovation. So everyone talks about it across the country. So.
Yeah. I think one of the cool things is we're not just a community where they just pack people in. We actually have jobs.
Yeah.
We're near the
Yeah.
airport.
Yeah.
We have Medical City.
Yeah.
They're building the new Advent Hospital, which is going to be massive.
Yeah.
So we have jobs. We're not just your cookie cutter community.
Yeah.
We do have all the traffic that goes with the cookie cutter.
That's right.
But let's talk about TrustHome Properties. You and I met just over 3 years ago.
Yep.
And at the time, I met you. I had 4 or 5 rentals in Central Florida, and we just had a good coffee. We were at Panera,
Yep.
and long story short, I moved all of my properties to you.
Yep.
Love having you manage my properties, but tell us a little bit about TrustHome and what you guys do. And then also tell us a little bit of the background story, because it didn't just start with you. It started, you're a generational business.
TrustHome Properties was originally Warner Quinlan, which started in 1969. So it's basically as old as I am, as old as Man on the Moon.
I'm 72,
Yeah.
so it's older than me.
I mean, it's an old Orlando company. I don't think there's anyone in our profession more experienced in Orlando than us, and I think that's just a fact. That was Mr. Warner who originally set the company up. He kept it as a very small family business over a period of time, and then in the early 2000s he decided to retire because he was nearly 80. There were 2 brothers. The Quinlan brothers were helping him sort of transition out of retirement, and they knew they needed a younger guy to come in and basically take over the business. My background is that of a CPA, so I've always worked in accounting and numbers and tax planning and stuff like that, and they felt it was a good fit. I had my own rental portfolio here anyway, and so we just felt it was a good fit, so I bought the company, took it over. At the time I took it over, it had got like 3 employees and a part-timer, and now we're a somewhat more substantial situation. We've grown a lot. We've moved with the times. We've used a lot of the technologies. Our business has had a lot of movement in the last certainly 5 years and 10 years where people have enhanced technology. They're making use of it. It saves time. They're more efficient. And a lot of companies have struggled with the expectation of the market, because renters are far more sophisticated, they're far more demanding. COVID changed everything for us, massive change in our industry. And I know that other companies have struggled to keep up with that, whereas we've always tried to keep reinvesting in what we do and move with the times a little bit. And I'm sure there's more we could do, but you can't do everything at once.
Right.
So as I say, that's sort of how TrustHome has morphed. We did a name change some years ago because people thought we sounded like an attorney firm or something. And so we made it more relevant to what we do, is that we're trying to get people to trust their home in our hands. That's our sort of catchphrase, because it's an expensive asset.
Right.
And so you need knowledge, you need expertise, and you need the systems to do it in the modern world.
So a lot of people will say, owning land and property is part of the American dream.
Yeah.
And, and some people, they've invested in real estate and have multiple properties. Some people try to manage it on their own. I never wanted to manage my properties. I just wanted to buy and hold, and just kind of see the asset grow.
Yeah.
And of course, anyone who bought real estate before COVID has definitely seen it grow. Oh, why do some people try to manage the real estate that they own on their own, and why at the same time should the people out there that hey, if you're one of those people managing your property, why should they hire you guys?
Do you want my honest answer?
I want your honest answer. Like, let's talk about it.
Kevin, you know me. You've known me a few years now. I try to be brutally honest with people, good and bad. I can give you a fluffy answer. I can dress it up. I'm going to tell you the truth. People don't value their own time. People think they will save money by managing it themselves. I will save a fee. I will save X money I might pay to an agent. There's several issues on this. One, they don't value their own time. They don't put a price on their own time, because the time you're spent fighting with plumbers, electricians and tenants, you're not spending with your family. All right? You could be doing other things. You could be away on vacation. You could be doing another job. People don't put a value on the time it takes, because it takes hours and hours and hours each month. Secondly, people think they know they can do it better. The problem is, a lot of our business, as you know, comes to us when people try and do it and they get it wrong.
Right.
One of the few things that people don't understand is in Florida, one of the most litigated areas of the law is Florida landlord and tenant law. And of that law, the people who break the law the most are landlords. And they don't even realize it, because they make these separate agreements on leases, and a lease is there to govern two people. It's a legal document, and you can break it as easy as just making a comment, because you might agree something that's not there. So landlords or property owners try and do it themselves because of that. They think they know better, they think they can do it cheaper, and often they get in a hole.
And as a customer of yours, that's the one thing I like the most. I was with someone the other day, and they were like, should I manage it myself, or should I, hire somebody? And I said, I think, and I actually gave them your contact information, because I said, the one thing I love is from the time I sign the lease, unless it's a major repair, I just get a deposit in my bank account, and I get a statement. So, and that's it. I mean, the girls on your team, and guys, I'm assuming you have guys on your team. I deal with Carla. So, but she'll send me an email. Hey, they have this. Do you approve it or not? And I value the time, and whatever my fee associated with you guys handling the property, for me, it's kind of like what you said. It's worth it to me, because I don't want to deal with it. I don't want a phone call at midnight that says the AC went out. I would rather have you and your team do it. And once again, because I've had the same management team, like with Carla, I've gotten to know them, and I know if there's something wrong, it's generally she's going to send me an email between 4 and 5, and I'm
for guys like you, there's a certain level of security, because you can sleep at night knowing who's dealing with it.
Right.
And one of the things, we used to do it on the advertising, we used to do a flyer, and we should bring it back actually. We used to have a Starbucks cup of coffee. And we used to use a comparison of that from an individual managing the property against a Starbucks cup of coffee. Because if you break down the management fees we charge, which is small, divide it by 30 days, divide it by 24 hours, you end up talking about $4 or $5 an hour, if that,
right,
for 24-hour coverage, because that's what we've got. We have 24-hour repair lines. We have leasing lines 8 till 8. It's a 7-day-a-week job, and people don't realise that. You are on call 24 hours a day if you want to self-manage. It's not an easy business.
Let's talk about, before we started recording, we talked about you having to go to mediation, and I don't know what you can and can't talk about, but give us a horror story of maybe something you got called into midway through. Because, when people call me up and they say, Kevin, I have a real estate question, that usually means they're already under contract.
Yeah.
And something happened with their contract that they want other advice. But give me like a horror story.
I'm going to give you two. People often don't believe these are true, but whenever I meet clients and I explain our situations, I tell them true stories because I could write a book on it. And a little sidebar is, before COVID hit, we were looking at doing a reality show. I was talking to a company in Dallas, a production guy who's called Scott, and he was going to come in and do a series for Bravo TV, one of the real estate ones, because there's so many crazy stories we deal with. And they were seriously going to fund this, and then COVID hit and they lost all the funding. Anyway, 2 stories. One, years ago in Altamont Springs, we had a boyfriend-girlfriend tenant. One was a CPA, one was an attorney. The perfect couple, 30 years old. You would think they're the best tenants in the world, paid the rent on time. To cut this story short, after we'd had several repairs and we'd sent vendors there, they suspected something was strange going on at the property because of the smells. We found out these guys were devil worshippers. They had cut a hole in the wall and got an altar, and they were sacrificing animals, chickens and rats.
Oh, wow.
We had to get Seminole County involved and all sorts, and we had to get these people out.
Yeah.
And we found out, I actually spoke to the previous landlord, and he said he had the same problem as well. So these were serial devil worshippers. That was one problem. And then another one, which people can't believe, was my own property here in Lake Nona. And people like yourself come to us, Kevin, and they say, I don't want any problems. You know, I want the best renters, the most professional people. I rented to a surgeon from Nemours Hospital just down the road. He was earning 700 grand a year. The perfect renter, you would think. In the space of 1 month, Nemours made him redundant. His wife left him. He tried to burn my house down. He lit a fire in the dining room with the furniture and tried to burn the house down. He basically had a mental breakdown.
Right.
The guy skipped off to Colorado. I ended up suing him, and it cost me like 20-odd thousand to fix the house. And that was in a high-end rental here in Lake Nona with a surgeon. So we deal with some crazy, crazy stories.
Yeah, we had one of our tenants moved out, and she trashed the home.
Yeah.
But, you know, the one thing about Carla, she sent me an email. She said, hey, this is, and like literally, I think we had it back up and running within 7 days. Yeah. So I've never had no devil worshippers and no
people
fires.
Don't understand. They think that renters and tenants are just uniform robots. They have life events. They get divorced. They lose the job. They get sick. They have car crashes. They have problems. And part of what we do is the experience to manage them through that. And it's not as easy as just saying pay your rent. You've got to understand what they can and can't do as a human being, and that's what experience is. And it's the human element to what we do, and it's not always easy. It can be very difficult.
Yeah, we have 3 tenants. One I know, and I think you know that story. He's someone who I've grown up with, and he stays in one of our properties in Winter Garden. And then the other 2, I have no clue who they are. I know that they pay on time. And I'm more than happy, you know, with the market currently with rental rates going down.
Yeah.
I'm actually okay if they stay at the same rental rate because, you know, I don't want it to go back on the market and then it sit, you know, because we now have a lot of rentals out there and prices have kind of decreased a little bit. So what would you say to someone who's watching and they're saying, you know, I really would love to get into investment properties, you know, for long-term rentals? Like, what would be your encouragement? Because I know you own some, I own some.
Yeah, I mean, it's the American dream. It diversifies your investments. It says something for your future retirement. You've got the growth in the value as well as the rental income. I'm always going to say get into real estate. But I'm going to say get into it sensibly. People think they can get into it and they become a landlord and that they can get themselves in a whole host of trouble. And they can also buy the wrong properties. We have a guy from Australia, actually. He bought 11 properties with a different real estate agent. And he basically told them a budget he wanted to buy. The realtor bought them all on budget. What they didn't do was talk to somebody like us. And it turns out they're in a bad part of town, bad rental area, bad demographics, and they are money pits. So this guy is now just putting money into them. What I would say is you've got to buy wisely. You make your money when you buy, not when you sell. And so we spend a lot of time with clients like yourself or other realtors we work with where they will come to us and say, hey, we've either got this budget or we're looking at this house. What do you think? And we will give them the numbers and we'll crunch the numbers. That's the way to buy smartly, is do the work ahead of time, then you don't regret it later.
Right.
You know, it's easier to fix ahead of time than later. So I would say get into it. Then sit back and let the professionals do their job. Don't try and micromanage the professionals because over time you end up paying more money with cheap fixers, problems with tenants who leave because they don't like you interfering. Tenants actually come to people like us. We had one the other day who said, I don't want to deal direct with a landlord. I don't want to do it. I want to deal with a normal company. So that's what I would caution people to do.
Yeah, when we bought our houses, we actually bought by school district.
Excellent.
So
yeah,
our
sure.
houses in Seminole County, they're all zoned for Winter Springs High School.
Yep.
A very attractive school.
Yep.
They're older homes, but while they're older, we refurbish them.
Yep.
We get great rents, and mainly because people want their kids to go to Winter Springs High School. And then the one that we have in Winter Garden is zoned for West Orange High School, which is another well-known school in the area as well. So finding the right school zone.
You just said something there. You said rehabbed great tenants.
Yeah.
Here's the math or the equation of being a landlord. If you keep your property in tip-top condition, and if you keep it modern, you get up the rental chain. You will get better tenants. They will take care of it, they'll respect it, and they'll look after it because they have a certain pride in where they live. If you treat them as landlord-tenant, that's when you get the damages, that's when you get them being delinquent, that's when you get the problems. So you basically pitch your tent where you want to be as a landlord. Either put the money in and keep the property up, and you're going to get higher rents and better tenants, or go down the chain and fish in that pond. And obviously, you know where we're going to recommend people do. We stay away from that pond because you spend all the time in court.
Yeah. Mark, let's talk about some people, they get their investment property or they actually buy a new home. They keep their current home and they want to rent it to friends and family, which normally is like, I should have had a V8 moment.
No.
And so, and because they just think, hey, my friend's going to take care of this property. I'm going to save on property management fees. What are some of the pitfalls of renting to friends and family?
It never works, ever. No matter what anyone says, I've seen it dozens and dozens and dozens of times. I've got a video on my YouTube channel where I do it. I tell people I will slap their wrists if they mention it. And I'm being serious. It is the biggest breaker of relationships because you are renting a 300, 400, 500 grand property out. It's a valuable asset. And I don't care how strong your relationship, how strong your friendship is. Once they become a renter, they see it differently. They have different demands. And it is the biggest wedge you can have. And I've seen it go wrong so many times. We did a case in Davenport where a lady from New York rented to her son. He went delinquent. She had to evict her own son. That was the only way we could get him out.
Right.
And of course, now they don't talk. The whole thing fell apart. It's just a mess. And there's so many problems with that. The 3 o'clock in the morning phone calls. Can you do me a favor? I'm late with my rent. You've got your mortgage to pay. All the little quirks that come with it. I have never once seen it work out. And often we get people come to us who have done that. And now they're stuck because their auntie's in the house or the cousin's in the house or something. And what do we do to get them out because they won't pay?
And it's funny because I rent to one of my best friends.
Yeah.
But if you remember, before we even did that,
But you never talked to them.
I came to you first, and I said, hey, look, this is the situation. And you kind of gave me some guidelines and parameters on it. And I think the best thing that I did with my friend and his family is we said, look, this is business.
That's it. It's
and
business.
This is personal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think they've been in the house now for 2 years.
2 years,
maybe,
yeah.
over That's 2 years. And he'll tell me when he's like, hey, just so I just want to keep you informed, which is nice because I talk to him almost every day.
Yeah.
It's worked for us, but it works for us from the simple fact that one, I have you. So
we told you ahead of time what the problem was. That was the thing.
And I told him, I said, look, we're going to do this, but it needs to be 100%.
Yeah.
Business goes through the portal with TrustHome Properties. So that way we can go and enjoy ourselves. And for the most part, I don't think we ever really discussed the rental property. Ironically, I get to go see it because, every once in a while I'll pick them up and we'll go to a Magic game or something. And so I get to see my rental house. So it's worked for us, but I think I had guidance from you. And we put it in clear. We had clear expectations of what it was going to look like, and so it's been very successful. But
it's interesting how many in a year. I would say we probably get 5, maybe 7 inquiries a year from people who have rented to friends and family and have problems, and they need legal advice or they need landlord advice what to do to solve the problem, and it's quite common. And I say to people, it never ends well. It never does. You just don't do it. Don't do it. I would like to say, Kevin, just as we wrap up, if you are a landlord and you're thinking about landlording now, you've got to know what you're getting into, because the market is so different. And it isn't as simple as offering a property to a renter. You have to have concierge service with it. So, for example, our renters, when they come and rent from our properties, they have air filters delivered to the door. They have insurance on a master policy. They have pet insurance. They have credit reporting. They even get cashback points if they pay on time. There's a number of different add-on perks now that the landlord has to offer, because that's what the market expects.
Right.
And if you can't do that, you're going to struggle trying to rent these properties on your own. But this is why we do a lot of placements for the big employers around here, Nemours, Lockheed Martin, these kind of people. You know, this is the sort of level we're at. So that's what you got to compare if you want to get into this business, and certainly compete in the Nona area. Kevin, thanks very much. I mean, as you know, we've been working with you over 3 years now. We're very involved in the networking groups that you do, and we value working with you and the Nona people, and the value that you guys and your team bring to Lake Nona. We know that one day you'll be elected Lord Mayor, but you're a valuable resource, and we're glad to be able to help in any way we can. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Mark.
Okay.
So, well, Mark, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm super thankful that you came in, just shared a little bit more about TrustHome Properties. If you own a rental property anywhere in the Central Florida region, make sure you reach out to Mark and his team. The graphic is right here on your screen, and you can call them, you can email them, and they will connect with you, and they'll give you a fair market analysis of what your property would rent for. On top of that, they will also walk you through looking at potential purchases for a place where you might consider purchasing, and they can give you an analysis of what it would rent for. So that way you're not throwing money away in one of the stories that we shared earlier.